Be live. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to yet another Q&A session on Hinduism. My name is Nishit Kotak. I'm here with the Hindu Academy team. We meet every Saturday at 2 o'clock UK time to answer your questions on all topics to do with Hinduism. So let me just tell you, if you're watching this broadcast for the very first time, you could be watching it on youtube.com/Hindu Academy. You could also be watching it on facebook.com/Hindu Academy. We are also live on Twitter at the Hindu Academy Twitter account. Now, let me give you a quick rundown of the format of today's call. We normally catch up for roughly about 50-55 minutes every week. And we start with a little video that is our focus topic of the day. And we have a little discussion around that video. And after which we then slip into the normal Q&A sessions, answering your questions, which you can ask in the comments area of the platform you're on. So today's video, which I'm going to be sharing with you shortly, is actually one which is Jay Bhai and myself having a quick conversation on the topic, are Hindu scriptures the word of God? So here it is, and I'll be back shortly. Are all the things that are mentioned in the Veda coming from, how do they say, the word of God?
You see, most religions will insist that their scriptures, the main scriptures are word of God. You can't even negotiate, you can't interpret. It's all fixed. God is steady, the full stop. There's no debate about it. The Hindu tradition is the only tradition. Look, this is the magnanimous nature of our tradition. It's the only tradition that says, do not let the Grantha become a Granthi. Grantha means a book. Become your, if you like, ties you down. This is the beautiful part of our tradition. Matma pravachanena labhyo na medaya na bahuna shruten. What we are talking about cannot be captured through any scripture, through any linguistic ploy, through any intellectual gymnastics, through any lecturing. It is something so subtle that it will defy being captured through any of these enterprises. So even though we say the Vedas are the central books of the Hindu tradition, they are like, if I can say, the most interesting, kind of if you like, symbols or scribbles, I can say, scribbles that will relate to the idea of spirituality, but they are still scribbles. Look at this magnanimous nature. We are the only tradition that claims that even though we give tremendous importance to the central scripture of the Hindus, we are not fixated by them. Do not let the Grantha, the textbook, become a Granthi, tie you down. So it's the ability to fly off. It's an indicator. It's a wonderful indicator to start your spiritual journey. Start with the Shruti, indicator. But then carry on to Yukti, use your common sense. And the final one, Swanubhuti. Experience this thing they are talking about for yourself, otherwise don't accept it. This is the openness of our tradition.
Wonderful. So there you go. We've got a very interesting topic to get started with. And so, Manish Bhai, I'm going to hand over to you to get started with today's discussion whilst I sort out the technical issues on this side. Thanks.
Thank you, Nishit Bhai. Welcome, viewers. Welcome to today's live webcast with Hindu Academy. So today's topic is Hindu scriptures, and we get a lot of questions. Which book do you recommend? And when it comes to scriptures, we Hindus are spoiled for choice because we got so many. It's like we got a library full of books, and there are so many books that you just keep going on. The list is like endless. So where do we start from? Where do we, get to? So Vijay Bhai, how do we decide which we should be going reading?
Actually, you can't decide. It's not that easy to decide. But just go to video first. There's a couple of things that Jay Bhai mentioned are very, very interesting. I mean, there's three things you can pick up really. One is the idea of the Granth and the Granthi. The Granthi is actually the rope, the mesh that binds you, right? So what he's saying, don't let the Granth is the scripture, tie into a mesh and you can't think out of it. You're locked in. You're in trouble if you do that, yes? I think we'll expound that later. The other thing he mentioned is a very beautiful verse from the the Mundak Upanishad actually. My Sanskrit is not good, but Sita can maybe say better than me. But the verse is that Naya Matma Pravachana Labhyo Na Medaya Na Bahuna Shrutena. These are very, very powerful words, which actually, as Jaiba explains, your intelligence, listen to all these dialogues and scriptures, yes, yeah. All these and listen to all these sermons, the scriptures and sermons will not help you find the truth. And then he mentioned 3 other words, Shruti, Yukti, Swanubhuti. Shruti is use the scriptures as a guide, use your intelligence, Yukti, and Swanubhuti, experience for yourself. I think that's one thing which we have to be very careful, because we live in the West and we live in a Western world, and we have picked up some not so nice habits from the Abrahamic traditions. And one is to say the scriptures are the final word and you can't challenge it. I've heard it from so many Hindus as well. That is not true. The Ved scripture, as Nishit was asking that question, the Ved are the experience of vast number of rishis, not just one. Now they are quite old and from an old time, right? They're very good guides to explain what the idea of Atman Brahman is. But that is not the duplicate word of God. The word God saying is the experiences of the divine that have been documented. And they've been documented in vast four Vedic scriptures. You'll be very careful. Some of the experiences are really strange and bizarre. They don't apply today. So even when you read the Vedas, you have to think for yourself. You be very careful, yes. Anyway, having said that, the Vedas doesn't end there. There is but 1% from what I know. The Vedas, the 4 Vedic scriptures we have is but 1% of the experiences, maybe even less. Vast number of the documentation has been lost. But today we have much more modern, living, speaking Vedas. Some are very recent, like, Raman Maharishi, Anmema. So they're all living examples of this idea. So we have to be very careful. Look, I'm not putting scriptures down. I revere the Bhagavad Gita. It's awesome. But ultimately, what triumphs everything is, as Jaibai says, Swanubhuti. Sita?
Yeah, no, I think you've covered it. So in terms of like the vastness of Hindu scriptures, they can actually sort of hold your hand and be a guide for your whole life. So as a child, you get introduced to religion, not through the heavy philosophy, but through the Puranic stories, the wonderful, colorful stories, which talk about all these gods and goddesses and the fight of good over evil. And I don't know why that, that's appealing for every child. And we even have our own versions of these kinds of stories in modern literature as well. Harry Potter, Star Wars, all of these things. They're appealing to everyone. And it just kind of sort of brings us closer towards religion. And then as you grow older and you start questioning and you sort of start seeing the limitations of these stories, you're like, how can Ravan really have 10 heads? When you start thinking like that, then it's probably time to realize that, your stories have been wonderful and they've drawn you towards religion. But now it's time to shift your emphasis towards the more philosophical scriptures of Hinduism, like the Vedas, Upanishads, Bhagavad Gita. And then it helps you sort of develop a deeper understanding of the nature of reality. So it changes your perspective on life, how you view things, the choices that you make. So it can have a huge impact throughout your life. It's just you have to be very careful as to which scriptures you read at what time and understand the limitations of these scriptures. And like Vijay Pai was saying, even the wonderful philosophical heart of Hinduism, the Vedas, Upanishads, all of these, they also have limitation in the sense that they're just guideposts up until the point that you actually experience it for yourself and you can produce your own scriptures. That's how empowering Hinduism is. You can have that experience and make your own scriptures. And we've got modern examples of that, just very recently, 50, 100 years ago. So they're probably the best source to go to in modern times. That's it.
Wonderful answer, Sita Ben and Vijay Bhai. Staying with this idea that Sita Ben said, and I think Vijay Bhai touched upon as well. But one, we got ancient scriptures, Vedas, where we got 4 Vedas, and they were written in Sanskrit, and then we have Upanishads and Bhagavad Gita. And Jai Bhai has done an excellent video on these scriptures and the Smritis as well, Mahabharata Smritis and stories. So Jai Bhai has done 2 videos that is very popular amongst some of the most popular videos of Hindu Academy. So feel free to go to our channel and look at these videos. If you search for Hindu scriptures, Vedas, Upanishads, or Smritis, you should be able to find them. So that's one thing. But coming back to the question, one, we have this modern literature, which I would say ancient literature, which was in Sanskrit, and most people don't know Sanskrit. They haven't read. So and then we get into translation of it. And then there is a, question of whether it's translated properly or not. And second is we get modern personalities talking from their experience. And where do we go? Do we follow modern, or should we go back to the old and trusted literature? Sita?
I mean, obviously it's a personal choice and everyone is welcome to choose the scripture that suits them the best. But I personally think if you've got somebody who has had these amazing spiritual experiences, who is able to speak English, why not go to them? That's the closest thing we're going to get to this glimpse into a spiritual experience. Yes, you've got Sanskrit and you've got this and that, but Sanskrit is like almost like a barrier because it's not a common language for the vast majority of people. So why kind of create that extra barrier? Go to somebody who speaks your language and can express it in the best possible way that they can. So that's my perspective. Vijay Bhai?
I think I agree. I mean, look, I think Sanskrit is a wonderful language. I'm not a scholar, but I study Sanskrit in my spare time. I got a lovely book I study. Anashita is qualified Sanskrit speaker. But the fact remains that today, in today's world, a lot of people don't have access to Sanskrit. Actually, even not now, even 1500 years ago, or 500 years ago, even the Tulsi Ramayana was written primarily because the Valmiki Ramayana was Sanskrit. And once you read it in the Awadhi language, it's kind of opened up to the whole of India. And that's one thing that we have to be careful about. Get the message in the language that suits you. And also, I think the thing about the Vedic, I've tried reading some of the Vedic Sanskrit, is very archaic. It's not proper grammar like Panini's grammar or the modern so-called grammars of Sanskrit. It's a very archaic, unless you're an expert, it's difficult to understand it. But regarding translation, it's true that there could not be just one, there could be many different variations. And that's part of Hinduism, because we all think freely and we all give our own interpretation. And that is why we have, like 7 Vedanta Acharyas, we have Shankara, Ramanuja. They have read the same Upanishads, but they've given different interpretation. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. That's how Hinduism is. So you don't get punished for blasphemy, so you shouldn't really worry. So your interpretation is yours. But obviously, but the main thing is, as Sita mentioned, how do you get in the modern world and to the vast majority of people? And that's a challenge we have here. So as much as possible, look for gurus who can help you in your own language. And then I think it'll be really a wonderful thing. Yeah. Manish, man.
Thank you, Vijay Bhai and Sita Ben. That's a wonderful answer there. So as we said, there is modern people like Swami Vivekananda, Ramakrishna Paramhans, Raman Maharshi, Anand Mahima, and such people's recent recordings are written down, and now there are some of them people making videos about them as well. So you can find many videos. Also, there are many good videos by like someone like Swami Sarvapriyananda, who's done some wonderful videos on Gnan Yoga and Vedas and some wonderful material out there. And not to forget, Jai Bhai himself has done a video on Kathopanishad, wonderful literature. Also, we have videos on life and teaching of Swami Vivekananda, life and teaching of Ramakrishna Paramhans. And these are available in our playlist. So please do go there and have a look. All this is available in English, and if you go through all this, these scriptures will make sense to you, and this will be much more understanding. So I think this is the modern way to go. So if you don't have much time, I think YouTube is a great resource, and you can find all this material. So thank you for that. Let's take a first question. Raj Kumar said Adi Shankaracharya had walked whole of India 4 or 5 times. And his friend asked why Shankaracharya walked only in India and not other parts of the world. Vijay Bhai?
Interesting question. Okay, first of all, I think one thing to remember is at the time of Shankaracharya, India was in actually a different state. It was not actually, as you were surprised at that time, about I think 60% was actually Buddhist, not Hindu. Buddhism was really spreading, yes, at that time. It was really powerful. And Shankaracharya, from what I know, he's actually the one who actually kind of put Hinduism back with his Advaita philosophy. I know there are a lot of people in the world. I know, well, I met some people who actually said that he's actually, they call him Pacham Buddha, means the shadow of Buddha, because his message is not that different from Buddha in the sense that, except the Buddhists say zero and Shankara says one. Literally, yes, the one ultimate and Buddhists say sunyata. But I think coming to your question, why do you go other parts of the world? I don't know, I'll be honest with you. But what I can say is that I don't even think they will understand him because the tradition of India was so different. I think perhaps now, yes, we can go around the world, which every Acharya does today. They fly to all the countries in the world and spread the message of Hinduism. At that time, I think if he did go out, I guess if he passed, at that time, India was all the way to Afghanistan. If he went to other parts of the world, I doubt that. I think that the decision will be so vast. I'm not sure he'll be productive out there. I think in India, his work is actually phenomenal. To establish 4 mutts, which he has done in the 4 parts of India, until by the age of 36, he passed away. That's just absolutely stunning, what is achieved. And he's the one who's seen as turning the tide of Hinduism back, turning the tide of India towards Hinduism again. So yeah, brilliant. Going out, I don't think he had time, to be honest. He was too busy working in India so hard. But yes, today, of course, they do. All the monks go out. The world is now much more of a global family. But really speaking, in hearts of us, I think only Shankara would know why he didn't go out to India. Sita.
There's honestly not much more I can add to that. I really don't know why why that was the case, but he's been a massive source of inspiration. He's really revived Hinduism where there was a risk of it sort of dying out. So there was a good revival with him, and his legacy lives on.
Yeah.
Wonderful answer, Vijay Bhai. So yes, Shankaracharya actually brought out Bhagavad Gita from Mahabharata, and he highlighted the importance of Bhagavad Gita. So could you elaborate on why Gita is so important?
Sorry, what about Gita, I mean?
Bhagavad Gita, yes.
Okay, the Bhagavad Gita is absolutely stunning and amazing. I tell you why. Because any question you have, in Hinduism, you get in the Gita, seriously. Yeah, something, I used to teach a trick to my students that if they get a question, and the question is asked, why do we do this? Why do they? All you got to say is it's in the Gita, and they get a mark for it automatically. Nobody's going to question you. Yes, that's a very trick we had to train us in Hinduism. But look, it goes over 18 chapters. Sorry, yeah, 7 verses, and every chapter covers different idea. The idea of chapter 11, Krishna as Supreme Lord. The last chapter of renunciation. I think it's chapter 13 on the idea of 3 gunas. Then we have chapters on, all the 4 different pathways to moksha. I mean, you just can't go wrong. And the other thing is that the teachings of the Upanishads are very abstract. I think as Sita mentioned a while back, they're very abstract and quite hard to get grasp of. And Gita makes it practical. So in that sense, I think the Gita is amazing. The other thing is the dialogue. The questions that Arjuna asks are the kind of questions that we as humans ask. So in a way, if you think, sometimes in the Gita, Arjuna asks a question, you go, but why doesn't he ask this question? And come the next few verses, he's actually asked that question that you thought in your mind. So in effect, it flows from our human perspective as well. So it's a very unique scripture like that. Absolutely amazing. Sita.
Yeah, so it's sort of like a summary of Hinduism. It sort of gives a broad sort of approach as to how, depending on your disposition, what you're attracted to, you can choose the particular path to spirituality in the way that you want to. So it's really emphasizing the idea of pluralism, even though it's got in the background the idea that God is Krishna. That's the sort of the key idea. But it's saying there's many different ways of making spiritual progress. And it also kind of gives more practical examples, like depending on your disposition, what kind of role you should play in society. So, it's unfortunately misunderstood as being linked with the hereditary caste system, but depending on your disposition, you fulfill a particular role in society, you do good work, and you offer the fruits of your work to God. So really, it's the essence of Hinduism. And if anyone is looking to sort of figure out what is Hinduism all about, that's the place to go, really. And you can sort of pick and choose the bits of it that you want to follow, bits that are most attractive to you, and you can make a great deal of spiritual progress.
Wonderful answer there, Sita Ben. So, when someone like, me, if I pick up a book, it's cool, and like Bhagavad Gita, let's say, it's quite hard to read. And how do we go about it? And maybe, you read a few verses and maybe you stop and you have to ponder over it. How to read such a book? Sita Ben?
Obviously, it depends on everyone's personal sort of take on it, but I would personally just kind of go through the different sections and sort of choose the parts that appeal to you the most. Suppose you're very devotional by nature, I would sort of start by focusing on what do they teach about Bhakti Yoga? How can I make spiritual progress through love and devotion towards God? How can I build a relationship with God? But suppose that's not your pathway. Suppose you're very active by nature. Focus on Karma Yoga. Look at the teachings of Karma Yoga, how you can make spiritual progress through good action and making sure you don't become egoistic or proud about your actions. Make sure you offer the fruits of your actions to God. So I think that's possibly the best way. You can sort of pick and choose. Obviously, if you read the whole thing, it's going to be very kind of long and, quite overwhelming. But if you kind of choose the parts that appeal to you the most, then that's probably what you can get the most out of in terms of that scripture. And another sort of appealing part of it is that it comes in the context of this wonderful, colourful story at a very sort of dramatic point of the Mahabharata story. So automatically that's a very appealing scripture. You're like, oh gosh, what's this all about? I want to know more. So there's a lot of positives about the Bhagavad Gita. Vijay Bhai?
I think, Manisha, what you asked, I guess some people do maybe struggle with the Gita a little bit. But I think main thing is if you read it for the first time, get a smaller kind of version of the Gita with just simple verses. And first time round, don't think too hard, because then you will kind of get, once you get the idea, pick up basics, like Sita said, the idea of karma, the idea of bhakti. When you pick the basics, then you can read, okay, now let me go deeper in these different topics which I like. So initially when you read, the chapter on the gunas, 3 gunas, it goes through all multiple facets of idea in food terms, in health, mental terms, and takes a while to get grasp. But I think once you read it once, just kind of not too much thought, and then go deeper as what you like, and slowly so that everything will kind of join together. So it's one of those scriptures which are very vast and covers so many topics. But yeah, that's how it is. Yeah. So yeah.
Wonderful answers there, Vijay Bhai and Sita Ben. So next question about Vedas. Anuj Pawar is asking, what is Somras? Is it equivalent to alcohol today?
Yeah. Okay, this is true that in the Vedic scriptures, the Soma is mentioned in many, many verses. And as I mentioned some time back, that actually in all traditions, ancient India, not ancient India, ancient world, the idea of changing having the dream trance, the dream trance, that people take some sort of drugs to the different trance to try and experience what do you call out of body experience, a different experience, altered experience, and trying to make sense of it. Because we're all so much tied to our body every day and thinking multiple times, how do I try and think out of it? So even in the Vedas, the Somi is used, but there are very strict rules, how you yagna and how to under what circumstances. Again, as I mentioned, there's a documentation. Vedas is a documentation of how people tried. Look, Indians have tried all kinds of methods, all kinds of avenues to try and experience the divine. So I'm not surprised that Swami mentioned that. All kinds. We are so thirsty for this first-hand experience, so thirsty. We have tried all nooks and crannies from yoga to Som, everything. So Swami mentioned that. But I would suggest don't nowadays be careful, because if you're not a hugely experienced person, you end up somewhere else in some sort of a rehab clinic or something else. I would say, is it alcohol today? Maybe Soma is perhaps a bit stronger than alcohol, I think, but I'm not sure of the power of how strong it was. That I cannot say. But yes, it's mentioned again in some cases that it was used by some ancients under strict conditions to try and get some sort of glimpse of a divine experience. Yeah, Sita.
Yeah, so there are all sorts of substances, ancient and modern, which people use to try and get this kind of out-of-body experience. And the first time you have it, it's just like, wow, you start thinking, oh, how can I get this experience again? But the important thing to remember is this is kind of done in a very artificial way. The real way of doing it is through sort of developing the mental discipline so that you actually have a spiritual experience, rather than having to rely on external things. And if you put the cart before the horse, it can actually cause a lot of damage rather than help. Because if you sort of start having these experiences artificially, you can't take it. You want to come back for more. And you kind of, in a way, you can destroy your life. So you have to be extremely careful. Make sure you develop the mental discipline, the strength to be able to take on an actual spiritual experience naturally. And then you're the most balanced person, the enlightened person who can inspire the world, rather than somebody who's confused and depressed and going through all sorts of mental health issues.
That's wonderful there, Sitaben. So that leads nicely to the question from Asa Satpathy saying, what is the difference between avatar and us? Sitaben?
Yeah, so avatar comes from the Sanskrit, which means that which descends. So it's the theory that God comes down to earth and to protect the good and destroy the evil. And there's lots of colorful stories about the 10 avatars within Hinduism, especially Ram and Krishna, who are probably, and Buddha, who are the most sort of prominent personalities in that. So in a sense, if you consider Advaita philosophy, the idea that we are all essentially spirit, we are all Atman. In that sense, I guess you could say that we are all avatars, because we are essentially God coming down to earth. And it's our job to then protect the good and destroy the evil, in a sense, although that's very simplistic view. And life is quite complicated. So we have to do the best that we can to navigate through life, do the next right thing, always do the good things that we can, and make spiritual progress. We are avatars, but I think it's the case that we have forgotten that we are avatars. We are all essentially spirit, and the whole point of our life is to sort of come back to that sense and say, this is who I actually am, not my body and my mind and who I think I am. So that's really the purpose of life. We are avatars, I think, but we've really forgotten that, and we have to discover it again. Vijay Bhai?
I think absolutely. Actually, you did explain pretty well. I mean, that's the idea. I think the thing is one thing about the Dvait tradition, where they see avatar as where they are seen as Atman, no doubt. Avatar is seen as condition of God. But as Shankara mentions, we actually ultimately, in one way, avatar as well. So I think Sita is very brilliantly, yeah.
Wonderful answer there. So there you go. We are all avatars, but don't forget everyone else is avatar too. So you can't just say I'm avatar and I'm Vishnu and I'm on top of everyone else. No, everyone else is too. So don't forget that if you think about like that. Next question from Asa Satpathy is asking about, how karma can gang up, and like pandemic now, it seems to be like a lot of things ganging up and making our life hell, and how to resolve this sort of situation. Sitaben?
Yeah, so the important thing to remember is when bad things happen, it doesn't necessarily mean that you've done bad things. You are a bad person, so you deserve it. Like Dad has said in his videos multiple times, the law of karma is a very complicated process. There's lots and lots of different factors involved in any sort of action happening. Like so many hundreds of factors came together for us to be sitting here today, right now. So it's a lot more complicated than a simple this caused this and this is the result. Everyone else's karma is affecting our karma and we're crashing into each other. So we have something like the pandemic. It's not the time to then mull over, is it because this person is bad and the humanity has done bad? No, we just deal with the situation, face it for what it is. And that's how we get good karma. We stand up to it. We do things that make us stronger, which make us better. We develop vaccines. We do social distancing, even though it's difficult. So we just stand up and deal with it. And that's how we get good karma and get over this difficult time. Vijay Bhai?
No, I think you explained quite nicely. All I can say is that, look, the idea of karma, the cause and effect, is not as simplistic as people put it. Just one happens, something happens. It doesn't work like that. Yeah, it's true that we have not done a pretty good job of looking after the world. That's why we get all these things coming up sometimes. But as Sita said, we find vaccines, we fix it and move on. But sometimes keep in mind, why did it happen? What can we do so it doesn't happen again? And that's being all part of good karma. So get up and fight and continue and do good karma. Don't think about, don't sulk and so we're doing bad things and we should really just carve down. No, get up and fight. Yes. So yeah, that's it.
Wonderful answer there, Sita Ben Vijay. We got a very interesting question from Ramit Uday. He's saying, I'm curious to know if any of you in the panel have a first-hand experience of God or enlightenment to an extent that you are convinced it happened to you. Who was first?
Oh, I'll be honest with you. I haven't experienced firsthand, but I do try. So the way I try, I try different techniques. One is to try and do as much possible. When I see somebody, I don't try and see them as a human. I try to see someone divine. So I kind of practice, I do my mental practice first to try and see divine everywhere. If I go I take a walk every day for 1 hour, look at the trees and see the divine in trees. And then I'm preparing myself so that when I'm actually in that right frame of mind. And so I do meditate a little bit sometimes, a few minutes, maybe 15 minutes a day. But I haven't gone that far as experience, but I hope to get there. So Ramit, I hope to get there one day. Yes. Yeah, that's me, Sita.
Yeah, same with me. I hope that I get there soon. But I mean, I do sometimes have sort of periods where I'm just sort of doing my day-to-day activity and just like everything just like stops. And then I suddenly just get an overwhelming feeling of, I can't believe I'm here kind of thing. It's just a strange sort of feeling that makes me think that there's so much more to everything than we make out. And I always sort of feel so sort of inspired by those kind of glimpses that you get, but they're very rare, they're very fleeting, and you can't sort of recreate them. So you just have to keep trying your best to make spiritual progress and get these glimpses into spirituality.
Wonderful answer there, Sita Ben Vijay. I guess I'm in the panel as well, so I should say me as well. So I think once I had one sort of glimpse, what you call, but it wasn't kind of wow experience where you go fall off the chair or anything. And I do believe that Jai Bhai had that experience from knowing him and his life, his work. And I'm convinced that he had that experience. And when I look at his words and his videos and everything, it gives me thrill, wonderful, you know. And this is what we're following. We're following Jai Bhai's experience and what he's talked about. And if you compare what Jai Bhai said and what we are saying, we are following what he taught. And he's again following what Ramakrishna Paramhans and Swami Vivekananda, who's accepted by Hindus throughout the world. So I think that's where our authority lies, that we are following personalities who's had this wonderful experience. Nisit Bhai, you are in the panel as well, so please.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I haven't had that sort of an experience per se, but it is always something to look forward to and always try and strive for to achieve, I suppose. But with that, before we proceed ahead, I'd just like to remind our viewers, if you are watching us for the very first time, you may be wondering exactly what is Hindu Academy and what do we offer. So let me just quickly share some of our resources with you all. So we have got our main Facebook page, which is at Hindu Academy, facebook.com/Hindu Academy. Here we are live right now on the channel. And we also have another very important resource, which is our YouTube channel, which is available at youtube.com/Hindu Academy. As you can see, we have 3,330 videos already, and they keep growing all the time. So please do come here, visit the playlists. They are neatly organized for you, and you can just watch the videos at your own leisure. One of the other resources we've got is the Hindu Academy website, which is at hindu-academy.com. And from here, you will find a number of things. One of which is going to be the ebooks for Hinduism, which you can view online on the embedded PDF here. Or alternatively, you can click here to download them. So you just simply fill in this form over here, and we will send you the ebooks by email automatically. And the very last resource I'd like to share with you is our online course on Hinduism, which we have already got over 6,000 students enrolled into it. So feel free to go to hindu-academy.coachzippy.com, or basically go to hindu-academy.com and you'll find all the resources on that one place. Now, a question for the panel. Swami Vivekananda has this one quote which says, "The truth can be stated in 1,000 different ways, yet each one can be true." So my question to the panel is this. Is truth something that is relative, subjective, or absolute?
Sita, here you go, have a go.
Yeah, so this is the thing. I think in the sort of empirical world in which we live, a truth can be sort of relative. And Dad's used this example before. If you say, oh, it's 2:30 in the UK, it's not the case in other countries across the world. It could be 7 o'clock in the evening. It could be all sorts. And, it depends a lot on your particular stance, where you are coming from. So in that sense, truth is in a way relative, but there are certain, even things that you think are true throughout the world, like sort of the rules of science, they're actually true for now. And as science continues to progress, things do continue to change. For example, we thought that the world was made out of atoms and small versions of atoms, but now we know that there's this whole universe of quantum, which has completely wrecked what we thought was the nature of the universe. So truth in that sense is relative, but there is one truth which is true and true throughout. But it's unfortunate that the way that it's expressed, it comes out in different words, different languages, and it becomes subjective the moment you try and put into words is that spiritual experience. So people are touching base with that spiritual experience, which we know is there and which we know can be reached through a variety of different ways. But the moment it comes into the subjective realm, where people who've got their own minds, their own language, their own ways of expressing things, they kind of put it out there, it makes you think, oh, well, they're all talking about completely different things. So how do we know that it's actually true? So in that sense, it sounds like that spiritual experience is also a relative truth. But the way that we know that, all of these different pathways are leading to the same thing is through people like Sri Ramakrishna, who was able to experience this spiritual depth through a variety of different ways and proven that they all lead to the same thing. So I guess that's really the only truth in this world. But it's just unfortunate that even when you try and put it into words, it sounds very different and it sounds subjective. Vijay bhai?
Yeah, it's a very tricky question. But I think if you look at what Swami Vivekananda is saying, it's very important to keep one thing in mind, is not to be swayed by other people saying, oh, I know the truth only, nobody else knows the truth. So think about it this way, that the fact remains that we are limited by our senses, yes. So what we experience from our senses is going to be, the same thing can be seen in different ways, experienced different terms. And you can never describe something, some things are so kind of abstract, it's difficult to say it in one way. So it could be the same thing could be said in different ways. As Sita mentioned, simple thing like an atom can be seen as a particle or a wave. And they both make sense, the same thing, yes, but they're both seen as an atom and a particle. That's how we understand it. That's the tools we have to understand it at this point in time. So we see both. We see a wave or a particle. That's okay. That's how things are. But the ultimate truth, as Sita mentioned, the experiential, the ultimate truth, that can only be one. That is a spiritual experience. Yeah. So yeah, truth can be subjective. It can be objective, and also absolute as well. It can be all three in that sense. But I would say if you look at the verse from the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, which says, asato ma satgamaya. That is asat to sat means truth. That truth is the truth of the Atma, that we are the ultimate truth. And that is absolute, that you cannot deny. Yeah. So it depends what you mean by truth. Truth comes at many levels and they have multiple meanings. Yeah.
Wonderful answer there, Vijay bhai and Sita Ben. So we got a similar-ish question from Adityanath and Yashoni. So Adityanath asked, does this, I think he's mentioned creature, but I think he means Atman. Does this Atman have a beginning and an end? And Yash Soni, he's asked, why is it necessary for a soul or Atman to be attached to the body? And is there any empirical or measurable proof? Vijay bhai?
So first question is that, does Atman have a beginning or end? No, it doesn't. That's the whole idea. I mean, this is something, I'll be honest with you, is something that I have wrestled with as well. It's a very, very powerful question that Yash Soni has asked as well. Because there's a lecture, very famous lecture by Swami Vivekananda on the idea of the absolute and the manifest. So how does the absolute, which is us, become the manifest? Yes. As a very, there's so many kind of views on this, not just one. So the question is this, basic question is this, that which is what is asked: why is it necessary for a soul to be attached to a body? The key thing is there's 2 or 3 answers, but the main ones that they use today to explain this idea is why is the soul tied to the body. Even the Advaita tradition is the idea of Maya. Even the Advaita tradition uses the idea of Leela. And you'll be surprised, this is the same question that all the Vedantic acharyas have asked. It's not Yash, you or me. Because if you look at the idea of, say, what do you call Madhava, let's say Vallabhacharya, the one who founded the Shuddha-Advaita philosophy, his idea is that the entire world, everything is Krishna, literally everything. He doesn't believe in the idea of Maya because he believes Maya is God kind of. That's his view. But the entire world is Krishna. Everything is there. So we are in that as well. We too are kind of part of Krishna's body. So in that sense, he explains that the idea of the body, or the matter in this case, is always a supreme. It always exists. So does the soul always exist. That's how God plays his leela. I mean, that's how we interact with God, through him and through matter. Matter includes the universe and our body. Then you go Shankara saying that actually the Atman itself is always free, but somehow there's a veil of Maya covering him. So this illusory world, yes. And what Shankara says, ultimately, if you look at ultimately what is true, ultimately, then this world will not be there. Nothing will be there. These are all trapped by Desh Kal Nimi. They cannot be true. So Desh Kal Nimi is not true. Let's face it. I mean, in a way, what he's saying is that we know the universe came spontaneously, right? Out of nothing, it just boom, we got space-time position. And they just go boom. So is it really true? Is it really actually true, that stuff? Or are we something else? The key question is, so what he's saying is that, look, all this is realm of Maya. The day we free from ourselves, we realize our true absolute nature, yes? So these are 2 kind of views. But really speaking, deep down, it's not possible to answer this question really perfectly. So it's not only you, Yash, who's struggling. The great acharyas of India have struggled with this question. But what I would say is that the day you experience firsthand, which is what Swami Vivekananda had from Ramakrishna, everything disappeared. It became irrelevant, right? It's like me when I was used to play with toy cars, right? And I used to attach them. But now, because that car, I don't even think about it, irrelevant. It just disappears. So somehow this Maya will just go once you achieve that state. So it's an interesting question. Sita, do you want to add on that? It's not easy to answer that.
It's very broad. So, I mean, in terms of Atman, there is no beginning, no end. There's no sort of concept of time when you sort of have the idea of Atman. And in terms of why we are sort of linked to our body, I mean, we do provide some kind of answers, which Vijay Bhai has touched on, but ultimately we don't really know. We don't know why the soul attaches to the body. Why are we born? Why are we doing any of this? None of us actually know. And so many philosophers throughout time and history have been scratching their heads trying to figure out what is the point of all of this. And nobody has really been able to come up with a clear answer. Oh yeah, that makes sense. You know, a really strong answer. And even when you have that spiritual experience, that question just falls away. That's why even all these enlightened individuals, that question just doesn't make sense anymore. It's no longer relevant at that sort of spiritual level. So there is no answer. We don't know, bluntly.
That's a wonderful answer there, Sita and Vijay Bhai. So I just, remember the analogy, one of the example that Jai Bhai normally uses is that sun shining on the waves of the sea, and each wave thinks it's the sun, but when it looks up at the sun and realizes the true sun is there, it was never at the waves. That is the kind of situation, but I think that's how we could look at that, but there is no answer to such questions. That's the thing. Let's take the next question. Aswin S is asking, is it possible to attain moksha in this Kali Yuga? Is it possible?
Okay, so again, there's interesting question because there are actually two views on this. Usually, if you're from the, say, Dvait tradition and you believe in Krishna or Vaishnava tradition or the Dvait version of the Shaiva tradition, the belief is that moksha can only be achieved after you pass away, not here and now, because they believe that ultimately the God will say, okay, now we are ready for me, bhakti marg, and then you go there. But the other tradition says, yes, here and now. If you know your true nature and divine, you achieve moksha kind of here and now. But having said that, even when you look at the life of Mirabai, who was totally for bhakti marg, you look at her life, I mean, if not moksha is as good as moksha anyway, right? Her life. So it's debatable. But the thing is, yes, as per the other tradition, you can achieve moksha in Kali Yuga here and now. And people say it's much easier in Kali Yuga than the so-called Treta Yuga mentioned in the Puranas and all the Satyugs Purana stories we have. It's much more easier to achieve in Kali Yuga. And the thing is, look, we have amazing examples already. We have examples, first-hand examples here. Ramakrishna Paramhans and we have Ramana Maharishi. So we have great examples already to show that actually it can be done firsthand. So yes, it's absolutely possible to achieve moksha in Kali Yuga. Sita?
I personally, don't really like to think of, oh, we're living in a time that's worse than previous times. I like to think that all times are good.
Yeah.
And why not be able to achieve a spiritual experience in our current times? There's no reason why we can't. The world is evolving, and it doesn't mean we're getting better or worse. It's just the nature. This is how the cookie crumbles. This is what we're living in. And this is our time. We've been given this chance to then make spiritual progress, go for it. And we have people in modern times who have been able to become enlightened, become sources of guidance for spirituality for millions of people. So I think it's totally possible for sure.
Wonderful answer there, Sita Ben and Vijay Bhai. So there we touched the idea of yoga, and as Sita Ben said, even in this day and age, again, you have bad people and you have good people. And if you look at the scriptures like Ramayana, Mahabharata, you see, even in Ramayana time, there is this Ravan, and he's causing havoc and is sending Rakshasas out, and they are causing all sort of trouble. Same with Krishna time comes such a tyrant king, and there are many such people. So would you say people were more happy in those ages if you believe that Yuga theory? Vijay Bhai?
So the thing is, Yuga is actually a Puranic stuff, right? So personally, that Yuga, there's no Yuga, because I know people that say that there's in the Satyuga people usually for 100,000 years, and in Treta Yuga 10,000, and I think in Dwapar Yuga goes, I think 1,000, then now it's 100, yes. But look, these are just Puranic stories to explain this. I know that some people who believe that the Satyuga is now coming, but look, the fact is we live in a very good yuga already. Yes, I'm not sure you really want to worry about other yugas. So I think it might be, it's not of importance at all. But yes, I agree. There's some Hindus who really think big about it, but that's their wish. But I would say it's not really relevant. Be happy with where you live here and now. See that?
Yeah, actually, just the more I think about it, I think now is actually probably the best time to focus on spirituality, because like in ancient times, like people were struggling, with their housing, and, there's thunderstorms and lightning, and where are they going to get their food from? They're constantly worried about those kinds of things. We are so lucky. We just pop to the supermarket. We've got nice heating in our houses. We've got nice light every night. So we are lucky. We don't need to worry about our physical well-being. Everything is covered. If we're sick, we go to the NHS. We're fine. We can sort ourselves out. But this is the time that you can then focus on spirituality and make spiritual progress. We're not worried about where our food is coming from or our heating and lighting. Everything is sorted. So I think now is the best time actually to focus on spirituality.
Fabulous. Now, I've got a couple of questions. We're coming up to almost time to wrap up. So if I ask a few rapid fire questions, maybe we can get through a few questions very quickly. Number one was from one of our viewers on YouTube. And he is a 15-year-old boy. He goes by the username That Guy Rishi. He says, as a 15-year-old boy, what's the one piece of advice that you'd give me, the most important one, I suppose, relative to his age?
Yeah. I would say be your own master. Make sure you never follow somebody blindly. It's okay to try and get information from all different places. But if somebody asks you, come and sit at my feet and massage my feet, no. Start now. Be your own master and think for yourself. It's going to be hard at that age, I agree. But whatever you think, use your own faculties to decide. Does it really make true? Does it really true? Does it really help me? Yeah. And don't just follow somebody because the the crowd follows it. So yes, I would say that you're at that age where you should be your own master. Yeah, that's my view. See that?
Yeah, I'll just follow on from that. Just be strong. Stand up to peer pressure. If there's something you don't want to do, don't do it. Do things that make you feel right about yourself. So that's it, really.
Yeah.
Fabulous. And then we have another viewer called Arjun Tomar, and he's asked a very interesting question. What I suppose is the million-dollar question, which is, what is life? How can I understand it fully?
Big question. Yes. Okay, what I said life is about. Life is to find your, actually Hinduism, life is to find who you truly are. Not just live as Jay says all the time, eat, drink, and burp. That's not what you are. If you don't do that and just make money and just buy a bigger house, then that's not what you are. The truth is, who are you? Why are you self-aware? Well, what is your true nature? That's the biggest question to answer, yes. It's going to be a struggle, but that's the question to answer. Sita?
Yeah, I mean, like we've touched on previously, we don't know what the purpose of life is or anything because we are essentially Atman. And why are we stuck in this body and why are we doing all these things? We don't know. The only purpose of our life is to really sort of touch base with who we actually are. It's a difficult journey, but we have to get there eventually.
Fantastic. We have a quick question from Ashok Kumar. I'm not sure if we've touched on it, but I'll just ask it. Is how do we explain Satchit Anand?
Okay, Satchidanand is same as Sat Chitanand is same as Asti Bhati Priya. Or Sat means existence. What do you call Chit means consciousness, and Priya means Anand means bliss. So these are the kind of terms you should describe in a way to the ultimate reality. The fact that existence is in itself proves that actually there is God. And the idea we are aware, self-aware consciousness, again, the evidence of something divine. And if you achieve moksha, that bliss you feel is out of this world, yes, 1,000,000 times more than any ordinary love. So Satchidanand is a very good way of describing the ultimate reality or supreme deity or supreme God or whatever. Yeah, Sita?
Yeah, this is the closest that Hindu scriptures have come to putting words to God, essentially. So it's the nature of existence, it's the nature of consciousness, and I think most importantly, it's the nature of bliss. And none of us have really experienced bliss. We've experienced fleeting moments of happiness in our life, and they disappear, and then we try and look for them here and there and all over the place. But the ultimate source of priya or bliss is God. And it's totally different from the transitory happiness that we try and chase after in our daily lives. So we have to all try and get there.
Wonderful answers there, Sita Ben and Vijay Bhai. We take an interesting question from Raj Kumar. We get, some of these Abrahamic people saying, quoting our scriptures like Yajurveda, Natasya Pratima Asti. And so he had somebody saying idol worship is prohibited in Hinduism, and they quote the Gita. Is idol worship, what is idol worship? Because we don't worship idols, that's the first thing. And is worship of a pratima or murti prohibited in Hinduism?
No, it's not prohibited at all. I mean, actually, to be fair, everybody uses them. They just don't like to say it, right? But again, there's a key difference between idol and pratima. I mean, pratima comes from the word prati, which means there's two ways, either pratima or pratiks. We use artifacts all the time. We use flowers, prasad, all kinds of artifacts to get closer to God, arti. So it's not unusual. And we need tools to help us, let's face it. Even to do manual work, we need tools. I need a computer to do Zoom. I need to do farming, gardening, I need tools. We all need tools. It's how humans are, right? We live in a biosense, we need tools. So thing is, the idol worship, the idea of idol worship in the Christian tradition or in the Abrahamic has always been the idea that the idol itself contains power. So like if I say this stone has power, like if people say Paras money has power, then we don't agree with that, yes? But if you use a pratima to link to the ultimate, So the ultimate becomes finite. So we can worship the ultimate through the finite because we're limited. We use those tools. And to be fair, even people who Advait tradition, they may claim that from day one they don't have to. They all do. I'll be honest with you. Yes. Either if you follow Ramakrishna Paramas, you can use him as a guide. Yes, we all do that. It's no different from other. Look, they use in the Abrahamic tradition, in the Christian, they use a cross, the pratik. So when they say they don't worship, what do they mean? When we say idol worship in Hindu tradition, we don't believe in idols that give us power, but to focus on the divine, on the ultimate God, that is true. We use pratimas, and everybody does that. They may not like it, but they do. Yeah, Sita.
Yeah, I mean, we don't worship objects. That's the important thing to remember. People seem to think that we do, but we don't. We use the object to then reach out to the infinite. And people think, oh, that's just what Hindus do. But people, not even of different religions, but even people of different disciplines use it. Maths uses it. You use this infinite symbol to try and explain or express that you're trying to reach the infinite. And physics and maths and science, we all use symbols to try and make sense of reality, and that's the whole purpose of these symbols. So rather than being vilified, they should be sort of acknowledged for the tools that they are.
Yes, I think, just to add on that, like using word God or even word Allah, is that, it is a link. It's not a God itself, is it? So that is in a way symbol as well. We are limited by our faculties mind, and we have to use these tools to relate to infinite. I think just to add on, next question we take from Bodhi. Shouldn't Hindus become vegan since with all the suffering what that happens in cows in dairy industry, should Hindus become vegan, Sitaben?
Obviously, it's a good idea for everyone to become vegan, not just Hindus, because the sort of the level of suffering that the animal kingdom goes through in order to feed us, it's not necessary. There are ways that we can continue to sustain ourselves, and not only ourselves, but the whole environment. The amount of change that you create by eating meat and having animal products creates a vast amount of energy wastage. So it's really important that we focus on looking at the needs of others, the animal kingdom, the environment, and do the best that we can to sort of, support life in this way. But then again, we can't be like a communist state. We can't enforce these kinds of things. So people have to make their own choices, and hopefully at some point in their lives, they might realize, hang on, why am I living like this? I can go without leather, or I can go without meat, or whatever it is. When you come to that realization yourself, then that's the time that you could become vegan or whatever it is to protect everybody around us. Vijay Bhai?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's as Sita said, I think maybe in 50, 60 years, people will wonder, did we used to eat all these carcasses? Reminds a very famous saying by, George Bernard Shaw, which is saying that, my stomach is a stomach, not a graveyard. Yes, it's very, very famous saying he had said. The thing is, look, I've been a vegan for now, I think 5 years. And initially it was very tough. I was always thinking of burfis and, all these nice sweets, full kachas. I just couldn't. Mine was struggling, but now I've got over it. But yeah, it's true that the cows suffer a lot, and it's very painful. I've seen some of those videos, and you can't even sleep after that. And not only that, you'll be surprised. Even in India, where I've seen some temples where they look after the cows very nicely, but when they get old, don't give milk. I know where they go, and they know where they go. They just want to admit it, yes. Because nobody, ultimately, commerce drives a lot of people. The very few organizations, I know there's some organizations which are really good. They keep the cows till their natural lives and whatever. But nevertheless, I think the fact remains that we haven't asked the cow, is that what it was? Yes. So it's a very tough question. But it's for Hindus, I think one thing to remember is Hindus are very lucky because India has always been an arable land. The soil was from the Himalayas for thousands of years. I mean, half of India is arable. No other country can boast it. I mean, a country as big as China, only 10% is arable land. So we are immensely lucky in that sense that for Hindus, the land that India is born has been amazing to grow crops and grow vegan stuff. So we already have a huge advantage. So we should take advantage, just build on that really. But yeah, it's a valid point. I think if we could, then it's a good point. But keep in mind that there are many tribes in the world, like the Sami or the Nannet who live in Siberia. For them, it's not just possible at the moment.
Fantastic. So I think we are almost at the end of our broadcast. Well, we are at the end of the broadcast. We are now at 1 hour since we started. So I just want to say thank you to everybody who's joined us today, both on Facebook and YouTube. We have a very, very active community especially on YouTube. And it's just very nice to see each other supporting, helping each other answer questions in the comments area, and just generally contributing to help make this conversation a very, very interesting one each week. So with that, I'm going to just say goodbye. I'm going to just bring back the team again, and we will see you all next Saturday at 2 o'clock UK time again. Bye-bye for now.
Bye.